Okay, so then now that we know how to graph regular quadratic graphs, in this video our goal is to just take that same exact procedure and extend it with two extra considerations, and that's when we're graphing inequalities. So obviously the difference between an inequality and an equation, as an inequality has one of these. It has a less than or greater than sign. So it's the exact same procedure, so we'll start out the same way. We always start graphing by finding the vertex, and you may remember that the vertex, we can find it by using this, by using negative b over 2a. So a, b, and c, a quadratic equation in standard form is written like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. In this example, a is equal to negative 1, because that's a negative 1x squared. B is equal to 6, and c is negative 13. So negative b over 2a would be negative 6, because b is 6 in this example, over 2 times a, 2 times negative 1. So that's negative 6 over negative 2, and that equals 3. So 3 is the x-coordinate at the vertex. How would we find the y-coordinate? And the answer is we would plug in 3 right here. So if we plug in 3, we'll have negative 3 squared. And actually, let me just put the parentheses in the right place. So the negative x squared means first square it, according to the order of operations. First square it and then take the negative, plus 6 times 3, and then minus 13. So negative 3 squared is 9, so that becomes negative 9. 6 times 3 is 18, and then minus 13. That whole thing evaluates to negative 4. So our vertex is going to be right there. It's going to be at 3, negative 4. So we will put that on our graph. The other thing to note is that this parabola, try to ask yourself, is this going to open up or down? And the answer is it's going to open down because the number in front of x squared is negative. So it will open down. So there's our first point. And then we could do things like find the axis of symmetry and the y-intercept. We don't really need to, though, because they're not asking us for those things like they were in prior examples. All they're asking us for here is to find the graph, or to graph it. So let's do that. So the next thing that we need to do is make a table of values, and we really only need 3 good points to get a parabola, and we have one of them already. That's 3, negative 4. So let's pick one number less than 3, one number more than 3, and we'll go the same up and down 1 each time so that we're consistent. Remember too that if we find what x equals 2, if we find what that equals, then we automatically know x equals 4, because parabolas are symmetrical. So if we plug in 4 to that equation, we'll have negative 4 squared plus 6 times 4 minus 13. This equals negative 16 plus 24 minus 13, and that's equal to negative 5. So this will be negative 5, and so will that. So we can put these points right here. So far we've done basically the same as what we did on the other graphs. Here's the only difference. The only difference is parts B and C right here. So the first thing is this graph going to be a solid or a dashed line? And because this is a less than, the way that we would signify that is we would make this a dashed line. So it's not ever actually going to hit that line. It's only going to be less than that line. So we're not going to make it solid, we'll make it dashed. That's how we signify. If it had said this, if it said less than or equal to, this would be a solid line. Because it's only less than, it's a dashed line. And then here's the second consideration: should we shade above or shade below that line? So let me draw this. We'll call this region A, we'll call this region B. Which region A or B, if you had to think about it, which region indicates that y is below this line, y is less than that line? And I'll show you how to check if you're not sure, but maybe you'll be able to tell me that region B is clearly below that line. Now, what if you weren't sure? If you're not sure, the strategy that I've suggested people use, it's the easiest, is pick the point 0, 0. Because 0, 0 it's clearly in one of the two regions. Pick 0, 0, plug it into this equation. And anytime you plug a point in, if you plug something in and you get something that's true, that means you want to shade it. Shading means you shade things that are true. If you get something that's false, you would not want to shade it. So let's plug in 0, 0. If you plug in 0 right there, you would get 0 is less than. And if you plug in 0 to that side, negative 13. So is 0 less than negative 13? No, it's not. That's false. That is why we're not shading this region that has 0, 0 in it. That means we would shade the other region. So basically you just take a point and plug it in, and if you get something true, that means you shade it. If not, then you would not shade it. That's how we graph inequalities.